Welcome to the Pacific Northwest edition of America Outdoors Radio. We've got a fast-paced hour of fishing, hunting, and conservation covering the nation and the Northwest, including 13 extra minutes of local content you'll only hear on Seattle's Sports Radio 950 KJR.
Good morning, Seattle and Western Washington. We are thrilled to be with you today, airing for the first time on Seattle Sports Radio 950 KJR. You're tuning in to our special Pacific Northwest edition of America Outdoors Radio, which contains local content about fishing and hunting just for our listeners in Western Washington. America Outdoors Radio is a national show with a strong Western U.S. influence. Heard on 61 stations around the country, we cover fishing, hunting, conservation, and the shooting sports. It's a true hook and bullet show, and the ability to combine that content with super regional stuff for you here on KJR, well, that's just plain fun on a weekly basis. Today, on our first KJR broadcast, we are bringing you a voice from the past at the bottom of the hour. Duane Inglin, the former co-host of Northwest Wild Country Saturday mornings here for several years on KJR, will tell you about the salmon you probably aren't targeting in Puget Sound right now that you ought to be going after because the fishing for them is pretty good. And no, we're not talking about blackmouth. At the end of the hour, Bob Loomis with Mack's Lure Company will join us too. He's going to be talking about Baker Lake Sockeye fishing opening up today, and Bob's got some suggestions on what you may want to use to hook into some of those tasty salmon and why what he's suggesting is going to work better than that bare red hook you planned on trolling behind that Dodger of yours. But before we go any further, we need to tell you what else is hot right here in the Pacific Northwest. Brought to you every week by your local Puget Sound Sportsman's Warehouse stores in Everett, Silverdale, Federal Way, and Puyallup. We are a week away from crabbing in Marine Area 7 South. That's the waters around the San Juan Islands and Bellingham, where crabbing for Dungeness can be very good. Do keep in mind the limit is 5 male dungies, measuring 6 1/4 inches across the back, and you can also keep 6 of those tasty red rock crab. Either sex is fine there, as long as they measure at least 5 inches across. And don't forget to pull those pots on Monday, because crabbing is closed across the Sound on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. What else is hot? Salmon and steelhead derbies. Now's the time to sign up. There's 3 Coastal Conservation Association derbies coming up this month with proceeds benefiting this great organization. They include the Wenatchee Salmon Derby, July 20th and 21st on the Columbia River, the Lower Columbia Summer Steelhead Challenge between July 27th and the 29th out of Kalama, and the Baker Lake Sockeye Shootout scheduled for the weekend of July 27th through the 29th. Google those derbies on the net or Facebook, or go to ccapnw.org and the CCA Washington page for more details. If you're after trout and kokanee, a little-known lake to try is Alder Lake in Pierce County. Tony, posting on NorthwestFishingReports.com, caught 6 cutthroat and a kokanee on a recent morning of fishing and posted a nice video of some of those fish taking the pink maggots they were trolling. One more thing to do: bass fishing. It being July, it's topwater time on many lakes, and one of the best lakes to fish for both largemouth and smallmouth in the entire state is Potholes Reservoir. The folks at Mardon Resort report the bass are biting off the face of O'Sullivan Dam in the sand dunes and the stretch of the southern part of the lake between the resort and the state park. By the way, if you're looking for a place to stay, eat, drink, launch your boat, and grab some tackle, look no further than MardonResort.com. And now you know what's hot right here in the Pacific Northwest.
That's your first local shot of the outdoors. Now let's see what's going on across the nation.
Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, a nationwide group working to keep public lands in public hands. We've helped ban the use of drones for hunting. We help repair wildlife corridors in key riparian areas. We speak up against illegal ATV use. Please join this dynamic conservation group. Check us out at backcountryhunters.org.
Ready for more local fishing and hunting? You got it. It's the Pacific Northwest edition of America Outdoors Radio, right here on Seattle's Sports Radio 950 KJR.
Next up, we've got a familiar voice for many of you tuning in to KJR. It's Duane Inglin, the former co-host of Northwest Wild Country on this station. He's back to give us some advice about fishing in the Sound. Duane, great to have you on our show today.
John, thanks for inviting me. It's very familiar territory in my old stomping ground, so to speak, so I appreciate you having me on.
Well, let's talk a little bit about Puget Sound salmon. You have been out recently. You have been catching salmon, but we're not talking blackmouth, are we?
No, we're not. You know, there's a great opportunity going on right now for resident coho in areas 10 and 11, which opened up a little earlier than normal. There's an abundance of resident coho that WDFW felt confident that they could allow anglers to get out early this season and chase these little critters around in areas 10 and 11. And it's a non-select fishery for coho, and your limit is 2 fish.
So let's talk about how these coho differ from the coho that are going to be coming in from the ocean later on this summer. I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. These are little guys, aren't they?
Yeah, right now they are. I mean, these are resident coho. They're reared in tens and released, and they residualize and remain in Puget Sound. These are not our well-known migrating coho salmon that head to the ocean. These will stay in Puget Sound, and right now you're catching fish anywhere from 2 to 3 pounds, which sounds like little dinky coho, but they're a kick in the pants to go target and catch. These fish will, because of their aggressive nature and how aggressively they are feeding right now, they will put on size, and around September, when they are mixing in with the returning coho from the ocean, these resident coho will be upwards of 5 and 6 pounds. So they're a decent-sized fish later in the year, but right now they're just fun to target and they're pretty easy to catch.
Well, let's talk about where in the Sound to catch them. Are we talking anywhere from Olympia all the way to the San Juans, or a little more specific than that?
Well, yeah, basically right now, areas 10 and 11. Additional areas 9 and 12 and whatnot, which is actually Hood Canal, but we'll focus on areas 10 and 11 now. Areas 9 will actually be open mid-July, and then you'll have a mixed opportunity for Chinook and coho. But if we're targeting those coho right now, you're basically talking areas 10 and 11.
All right, we've got to leave it at that for this week, but Duane, I want you to come back next week and tell our listeners how to catch these resident coho. Thanks for joining us today, right here on KJR with the Pacific Northwest edition of America Outdoors Radio.
Natural wonders, beaches, and coves, majestic forests, and scenic vistas are waiting for you at the Tillamook Coast. Lace up your hiking boots, grab your camera, and come to Northwest Oregon. Find out more at tillamookcoast.com.
Don't leave yet. We've got one more local shot of fishing and hunting to wrap up the Pacific Northwest edition of America Outdoors Radio.
It's that time again. It's time for another Mack's Minute, brought to you every week from Mack's Lure Company. And this month, we have a very special fishery opening up in the Northwest, the Baker Lake Sockeye fishery. Bob, tell me that Mack's Lure Company has got a lure just for this fishery.
John, we have a lure just for this fishery.
Thank goodness. Tell me more.
We make a number of different products, but one of the better products for the sockeye fisheries are what we call the Cha-Cha Sockeye series. They are a squid setup with a pair of hooks, smile blades, so you get a lot of added movement, fluorescent beads, glows, a number of different things, high UV to draw fish to your lure.
Here's a question. I thought that everybody just fished a red hook behind a Dodger or a Flasher at Baker Lake, or when Lake Wenatchee's open, which it may or may not be this year, that's the same drill there.
Sure. You know what? That's what we all fished. That's what we fished for years on Lake Washington, was nothing but red hooks. And red hooks do work. But I will tell you that fishing product that moves, whether you used a wiggle hoochie bill or you used a smile blade that's offset that moves the product behind it, you're going to attract fish better than you will with just a pair of hooks.
Well, I noticed this does have red hooks on it as well.
Yep.
And the hoochie skirt, you really believe that's a difference maker?
Absolutely.
All right. Well, there you go, folks. Bob Loomis is convinced, and I've seen him catch a bunch of sockeye, so you should probably be convinced too. It's the Mack's Lure Sockeye Rig. You'll find it, especially this month, in stores around the Northwest, especially in Washington State, where you're going to be able to enjoy that Baker Lake Sockeye fishery that's opening up this weekend. Thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
That's all for this week, but don't worry. We'll do it all again next Saturday morning from 7 to 8, right here on Seattle's Sports Radio 950 KJR.
Hot summer nights mean hot morning fishing for sockeye here in the Northwest, and Mack's Lure Company has got what you need to catch a limit with the Double D Dodger and 2 great sockeye rigs. The Double D Dodger has a unique fast, slow action and can be fished away from the boat without a side planer. The Cha-Cha Sockeye rig and Double Whammy Sockeye Pro both feature a patented smile blade and 2 stout red hooks that won't let go of that salmon when it bites. Mack's Lure Company, getting you into the sockeye this summer.
NorthwestFishingReports.com is the Northwest's largest fishing reports website, featuring well over 50,000 fishing reports, videos, articles, and more. All 100% free. Catch more fish with Northwest Fishing Reports. Log on today.